Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I am a mathematics teacher with a passion for exploring the world through the lens of mathematics. Over the years, I have discovered that mathematics is much more than formulas, equations, and examinations. What fascinates me most is how many everyday situations can be approached mathematically. Whether it is making better decisions, understanding patterns, optimizing resources, or solving practical challenges. Mathematics provide a logical and effective way to find solutions. I enjoy taking real-world problems, breaking them down into manageable parts, and using mathematical thinking to uncover insights that may not be immediately obvious. Through this channel, I hope to demonstrate how mathematical concepts can be applied beyond the classroom and inspire more people to appreciate the beauty and usefulness of mathematics. I created this channel as a platform to share interesting problems, practical applications, and mathematical ways of thinking. I hope you will join me on this journey as we explore how mathematics can help us better understand the world around us. Okay, for a start, let us talk about a topic most working adults will be interested in. Using knowledge in mathematics, okay, how do I analyze and decide what I want to do with my money? Okay, this helps me to be objective, focused, and keep me on track in my planning of my financials. So in order to do so, we need to first understand the idea of the future value of money. So, the future value of money is a fundamental concept in finance that describes how the value of our money today changes over time due to the combined effect of both the interest rates and inflation. So at its core, it answers a simple but important question. How much will your money be worth in the future? So to understand this, we first need to consider the role of interest rates and as well as our inflation, and how both of them comes together and affect my value of my money, okay, and the amount of money that I have. So when we place money in the banks or in some sort of investment, okay, we have something called the compounding effect, which means your money grows over time. So the future value of your money, okay, is equals to its present value multiplied by 1 plus r to the power of t, because your interest that you earn from your bank account as well as your investment will again earn interest after 1 or 2 years or whatever amount of years that you decide to invest. So FV equals to PV times 1 plus r power t is what we call the compounding formula. So this will actually help us to know a lot of core mathematics that is required to understand financial planning. So you can see that if my interest rate is 2%, okay, or my rate of gain is 2% per year, okay, in 40 years time, I will have the double the original of money that I have in my bank or in my investment. But the thing is, time and interest rate works exponentially together to increase my numerical wealth. That doesn't mean that what I have can actually buy the same amount of things 40 years later. So the silent variable that is actually killing us is actually inflation. So nominal value of my money goes up, I have more money in my bank, but that doesn't mean that my purchasing power stays the same. So inflation is the general increase in the price of goods. Even when my money numerically increases, its real value may decrease if inflation outpaces your interest. So what you actually can buy decreases, although you keep seeing your amount in the bank account increase. So the subtraction fallacies tells us something very important that a lot of people misunderstood. Okay, if the inflation is 5% and my bank interest is 2%, my loss in purchasing power is not 3% per year where you take 5 minus 2. This is inaccurate because both the interest and inflation compounds exponentially over time, and the rate of compounding is different because your rate of in your interest rate and your inflation rate are not the same. So how do I actually know what is my real rate of growth or rate of the decrease or increase of my nominal value? Okay, so that is the first mathematical part that we will start with. So I want to know what is my future value, real future value, based on my current present value. Okay, remember that I have interest that I'm put into my bank or my investment or whatever. So I multiply by 1 plus R, but inflation eats my purchase power. So my money actually becomes smaller. So I will divide it off by 1 plus R of inflation. When this happens, what I know is that my present value of the 1 plus R real, okay, is equals to my future value, real value, and is equals to these expressions that I have. So the present values gets cancelled off, and then I'm left with 1 plus R real equals to 1 plus R interest over 1 plus R inflation. So my R real is equals to 1 plus R interest over 1 plus R inflation minus 1. So a bit of algebraic manipulation shows us that we have this. So my R real becomes minus 1 minus R inflation over 1 plus R inflation. This simplifies to R real equals to R interest minus R inflation divided by 1 plus R of inflation. Okay, so what you see is that if I had used R equals to, in the previous example, okay, R is 2%, in R interest is 2%, and my R inflation is 5%, my R real is actually 2% minus 0.05 over 1 plus 0.05, which turns out to be 0.286, which means your R real is approximately 2.86%. Okay, so you compare it with the 3% just now, you will think that, actually I lose lesser. But the question is, why do we want to lose our purchasing power? Right? I want my purchasing power to increase so that I can buy more things with my money. So let's take a look at what it means if I do not do anything to this situation. The cost of inaction. So if I were to assume that the R interest is always 2% and rate of inflation is always 5%, my R real is going to be negative 0.0286%, which means that I lose my money by 2.86% per year. If I compound it across 20 years, you will see that 1 minus 0.0286 power 20 is about 56%. Which means if I do nothing, I only put it in the bank, or I put it in some investment that gives me a 2% returns, while my inflation stays at 5%, I will lose half my my purchasing power in 20 years' time. So if I do not act on it over 20 years, my idle money loses half of its purchasing power, and that is very, very scary. So this comes to the point where we want to talk about why investment. Why do I want to put it in some place where I gain more than what is the inflation? That's why people always say, I want to beat inflation, I want to beat inflation. But what does actually beating inflation means? It actually means that my real rate of growth must be greater than the zero. So in practice, I don't want my money to sit idle. I must grow with some nominal returns. And these nominal returns can be from assets like stocks, bonds, real estate. Okay, if you want to talk about T-bills, savings account, all that can come in. But the R real, which is the real rate of growth of your money, okay, is to be calculated using this formula. Okay, and for wealth to actually grow, that means your purchasing power grows and your nominal value grows, I would want the R real to be greater than zero, which then turns out that the R nominal must be greater than R inflation. So this is the mandatory baseline that I use for all my financial decision making. If I were to invest in something, put my money somewhere, will it actually grow my money? So let's look at how this is important to us. Okay, if I want to do target setting, okay, my real growth rate, I want it to be 2% annually. Okay, and then the constraint is that the average Singapore inflation from 2021 to 2023 is about 3.1%. Okay, let's say. So when I plug it into the calculations, my 0.02 is my real rate growth. I want to find what is my R nominal. So I plug the numbers in and I get this. So what does this number mean? This number actually tells me that if I were to beat inflation, and if I want to beat inflation and make my money grow at 2% per year, my purchasing power to grow at 2% per year, I need to find an investment or a way to earn money, earn interest such that it returns me about 5.16% per annum. Is it possible? Is it a reality? Or is it hard to achieve? Okay, we will see in a while. Okay, so why do I say that we may not be able to get this number as the static number that I want of 5.16%? Is because inflation changes year on year. The market and the real world is not static. Sometimes the inflation rate goes up, sometimes it comes down. Sometimes the nominal investment rate or interest rate goes up, sometimes it goes down. So it is not possible to say, okay, I will just take one number, okay, and then try to aim for that forever. Okay, you can't just plug numbers from nowhere. So we want to do data-driven or information-led decisions. So how do I actually do that? Okay, let us first try and generalize this notion of F real, which is my future value. Okay, so let me first generalize it. Okay, so let's say I'm going to do it over n years. Okay, n years. So my future value is equals to the present value multiplied by the first year nominal rate, okay, I 1 over 1 plus inflation rate year number 1. Okay, so this is after the first year. So after the second year, there will be some nominal growth from my investment, I will also be affected by the inflation. So I will multiply this yet again with nominal 2, 1 plus inflation 2. And this carry on for 10 years, 20 years or whatever, nth number of years. Okay. So in mathematics, this is what we call successive multiplications. So we actually do have a symbol to symbolize multiplication, and that is the pi notation. Okay, so I can rewrite this as P of V multiplied the successive multiplication of I equals to 1 to n of 1 plus nominal rate I divide by the successive multiplication of 1 plus inflation rate I. Okay, so this is what we get when we actually do it over n years. This is the real future value of money. Of course, all these things are what we call hindsight, because we will not know what is my nominal rate and in my inflation rate for next year. I only know it up till today. So what do? I can use a very simple data set, maybe 5 years, 6 years or 10 years. Okay, then after that I get the sense of what my inflation rate is and so on. Then I use that to make decisions. So what I can do now is that I will know, okay, my annualized real rate, okay, would then be given by R real equals to the square root nth root of this thing. Okay, minus 1. Okay, so what this is actually saying is that if you learn a bit of mathematics, right, okay, you will know that this actually means the geometric mean of a sequence of numbers. Okay, it's a geometric mean. So how do I actually use this geometric mean to help me make sense of data? Okay, now we look at some real data, okay, of Singapore from 2021 to 2026. So from 2021 to 2026, okay, I have found these values actually from a news report, and then I copied down all the numbers and then I plug it in. I got 6 years, so my n is 6. Okay, and then I assume that my nominal interest that I get from my investment and so on is 2.5% per year. Okay, and then I use all these rates data and I put it in. My real rate of growth is 0.0198. So it means, okay, my money is growing at about 1.98% per year over the 6 years, based on this inflation rate and of course this nominal return of 2.5%. So are we happy with that? Okay, let's take a look. So the rough estimate versus the exact reality. The rough estimate, I use my inflation to be about 3.1%. Right? So the target that I want is 2%. The required nominal rate that I need my investment to work at is 5.16%. Now, most of my bank interest or most of the investment tools is quite unlikely to give you about 5% return year on year. Okay? Unless you pick risky stocks. We will talk about that later. The exact computation that we use using the data that is that can be found on news is that my actual R nominal, let's say I only grow at 2.5% my investments. Okay, the actual real returns that my money is going at is also about 2%. So you can see the staggering difference. Okay, inflation 3.1%. I want my real rate of growth to be 2%. My R nominal needs to be about 5%. But with actual data from Singapore, I don't assume, okay? I don't assume anything. It is actual data. I actually don't need 5% that much. I only need it to grow at 2.5%, right? So, how do I look at this whole situation? Okay, the purchasing power pipeline is as such. My present value will grow. Okay, it will grow in nominal value, in as numbers in your bank account, but the inflation actually reduces it. Okay, it crushes it. Okay, and that crushing effect after it has grown is actually what your real purchasing power is, right? So your true wealth requires a balanced view, not just focusing on the nominal growth. You must also take into account what is my inflation. If the inflation is high, I need to pick things that can actually help me get a higher nominal rate and hence a higher real growth rate, right? So with that, we actually have I actually have three very important insights about it. Time is the multiplier. The future value of money compounds exponentially. So I need to start early to leverage the curve. Nominal rates are illusions because I can give you a high nominal rate, but if your inflation is higher than that, okay, then actually your real growth is still static or your purchasing power still decreases. Okay, so how do I optimize for my purchasing power? Okay, my ultimate goal is not just to increase the numerical amount of money I have, but I want to maintain and grow that money so that I can actually buy what I need in the real world in future. So I hope this video can give you an insight of how you can make good financial plans with the future value of money. Thanks for watching.